To start off, I'm Kimberly Ryan, the Associate Director for Career Services. And at our office, we do help with LinkedIn and reviewing your profile. So if that's something that you would like to do individually, we can do appointments. But for today, let's go through some of the common issues we see with LinkedIn and some of the ways we can better utilize this very robust networking tool. So to start off, a lot of people may wonder, what is LinkedIn? How is it different than, say, maybe Facebook, all the other, social media sites that are out there? Well, this is a professional site. So it is geared just towards your career, your business, and in terms of job seekers, a great way to network and search for jobs. So there's a lot to offer here. And the basic one is you are either marketing yourself or your company. So you are going to make a profile on LinkedIn, and this profile has been, sections continue to be added to it, pretty much creating a very robust online portfolio now. So there used to be a time where students, and there are still very many professionals who might make their own website, and if you've done that, that's great, but you can make your own website portfolio to show off your work. Depending on the industry you're in, that might be a great idea. But LinkedIn is a free tool that you can use to show off your portfolio and link out to all your projects and everything you've done. So for students, that's what you're marketing. You're marketing what you have done so far through your educational, and then some of you your experiential career so far. As far as networking, it is allowing you now, it has grown tremendously right now. So there are millions of users on LinkedIn, and it gives you the opportunity to network with companies, recruiters, alumni, your peers, your professors, and the list goes on. So there's a lot that you can do there. In terms of being a job board, it is now growing quite a lot to the point where it is a great search engine for you to connect, like I said, with these recruiters, with these companies. So gone are the days where you had to go search or find an email and try to connect with someone. Now you can go search for them on LinkedIn. It makes it extremely easy to do virtual networking. So you should be taking advantage of that as a job seeker. As far as your profile, this is the basics. So you are going to start off when you first sign up for LinkedIn. It's going to ask you to create a profile. And right here we have the basic sections of what you would need to create a LinkedIn profile. The example we have listed right here on the side is actually one of our students that are going here right now, one of our famous students, Alyssa Carson. So what we have here is an example of a headshot. On the side, I have used her as an example because typically we tell students always use a headshot, which literally means just your head, okay? So we don't want to see, your background, people going by. We don't want to see, a full body shot, things like that. However, there is the exception, and that is the sample we have right here on the side. If you have something industry related, that is the exception where people often will show themselves maybe in their industry uniform, as she's showing off right here, obviously as an astronaut in training, showing off that. It could be, for instance, if you have a particular work environment where you want to show that off, you can do that as well in that background photo that she has, and we're going to go over those banner photos and how you could use that to your advantage. But as far as your headshot, it is supposed to be 400 by 400 pixels, so take that into account when you're choosing one. You want to choose something that is clear, professional. Cleaner background is helpful so that people can identify you. There's actually some stats going out that people are 4 times more likely to click on your profile if you have a clean headshot. So highly recommend that you invest in having someone take a good picture with you. Even cell phones nowadays are pretty high tech. You can just use a clean background, take a nice shot, and that's really going to help you when you're trying to connect with recruiters and companies. Now, as far as that headline, if you're wondering what is a headline, what does that mean? Well, that's that line right under her name where it says Alyssa Carson. That is typically where, if you are already working, you'll put your job title. But for students, that's where you could put, if you were a job seeker, perhaps your major, or what your future profession would be. So in this case, she's already putting astronaut in training. So she's already showing what her future career will be. So that is something that you can do, and we'll go over some other ways that you can think of putting a good headline into your profile. And that about section. Now, the About section is something that you can use first person in. So typically on a resume, you would never use first person. But here in LinkedIn, this is where it's helping people get to know you, being a little more personal with them. It's somewhat like a cover letter, that About section, where you're going to give an overview of who you are and what do you really want people to know about you as your first impression. So we'll go over some examples as well of what you could put in that section. And then, of course, the basics: experience, education, skills, just like a resume. Those are really key sections in LinkedIn, where you're going to want to show those off. And even as a student, that could mean things like, I'll show you in the additional sections, volunteering or projects. So those are two big sections for students if you don't have any paid experience yet that you could take advantage of instead. You'll notice that there's a lot of additional profile sections you could use. I highly recommend, like we talked about a little earlier, is turning this into a portfolio. So they give you the ability to put media, links, pictures, websites, anything in terms of your projects. You could even upload documents. So if you want to show off your really hard, earned project or something you did really great with, a certificate even, those can all be uploaded to LinkedIn, which is a great way to show off, the best things you have about yourself academically so far, and hopefully as you grow some more professional experiences. Some of these sections are not going to apply to you, and that's okay. So if you have never been published or you don't have a publication, you're just not going to fill that section out and it won't even show in your profile. So these are in no way apply to everyone, and you do not need to have all of these, but the ones that do apply, you can put down. One of the ones that I think some people question the most would be test scores. How useful is that section? Should I be putting that in? And I would say if you are going on to grad school, that would be something I would consider. If you have a good test score you want to show off, and the keyword is obviously a good score, that would probably be a good way to put in, for instance, your GRE score, or if you have something that's very tailored test to your industry that you'd like to show off where you did well, that would be something to show. Otherwise, that's not a section that you would have to put, and particularly if you want to keep that private, you do not need to put that. And if it's something that you're saying, well, I didn't do as well as I would have liked, then there's no reason to show off things there. You're only putting your best professional self out there, so keep that in mind when you're filling these sections out. So going along with what does LinkedIn provide me? What can I do with that profile? What's the point of filling in all this information? Well, there's a lot now that you can do in terms of connecting, and very similar to your Facebook or your Twitter feeds. They now have what was old-fashioned called your news feed of companies, people you follow or connected with, and being able to see what they have posted. And in terms of seeing what jobs are out there or what industry news or connecting with others, that is a great way to build a network and stay on top of what is happening with the people that you know. But I recommend targeted networking, where you search for people perhaps in your particular industry. You might be searching for alumni from your school that work at a company that you really want to work at. So those are things I really would recommend. And then when it comes to job searching, LinkedIn has really stepped it up in the recent couple years, with now adding a designated section just for jobs. Companies can make a post for their own job and put it in the feed. And sometimes they may even reach out to you. So that is the purpose of having a really great profile and having everything filled in, is employers can search for keywords in profiles, and they may message or reach out to contacts or students that they are interested in hiring. So that would be a reason why you'd want to keep this, your profile up to date as much as possible as you go through your college career. And I'm going to show you at the end a demo, and we're going to kind of switch over to the actual LinkedIn side. So once we get through this, we will be showing you actually what this looks like. As far as connections though, some people don't understand, okay, what do connections mean? Do I have to connect to people? What is the purpose? And the reason being is, we just talked about, there's a social feed, so a news feed, where you see what people post, and that would be why you would want to connect with someone. You would want to connect also if they're posting jobs. So connecting with that recruiter or that company is another reason why you would want to be connected. And doing this, again, will help you grow what you can see, but also if they're connected to you, hopefully it's a reminder to them to speak with you or think of you if a matching position or opportunity were to come up. So to start off with, you of course should be reaching out, connecting with people you know. So as a student, this includes, your class peers, anyone going to school here, your professors, staff here, even your family. So some people are like, well, I don't want to connect, my professional and my family life. You do want to connect with family here because you don't know who your family might have other connections to or who they can refer you to. So who you know is always a great tool when you're job searching. So family is definitely something that you would connect with on LinkedIn as well. Of course, keeping everything you post and do with your family professional in that setting, but you can connect with them. And then of course, after that, you are going to have some connections that are ranked by LinkedIn, and they are going to rank them by for instance, a first connection is someone that you have allowed and given approval and permission to see, your feed and your profile, and you're connected with them. But then they're going to rank it by second connection, which means you're not connected with them, but somebody you know is. And then they even continue on to third connection, where a friend of a friend that you know is connected to them. So that's how you can find more people and introduce yourself, by having a mutual connection and saying, I see that we are both connected to, and, put their name, and I would like to, also connect with you. So there's ways that you can reach out that way. And then of course, there's always the people you want to know. And in this category, it is going to be usually those recruiters. So you may not have mutual connections with them, but their job is to find candidates. And so their job is to connect with people. And it might be maybe industry knowledgeable people that you want to know. So those are people that you could reach out to. Whenever you are reaching out to someone that you don't know, it is always a good idea to put a message with your connection request. And that is something that LinkedIn pops up and says, do you want to send a message? It is always recommended that you introduce who you are. So for students, it's very simple. It's going to be, okay, what is your major and your school? And that's how you can introduce yourself. So this is a very basic way to just send a quick connection to someone. If, however, you have a more targeted focus, okay, why am I reaching out to this person? It's always good to have maybe a little more detail. So if you're cold messaging someone that maybe you'd like some advice from, or, you have seen that they have a career path that you want to emulate, for instance, you could reference, for instance, the first example shows someone read an article on LinkedIn that talked about their degree and what they are doing. And so they wanted to ask a question. So they connected with that person and they asked a meaningful question. And that's a really great way to connect with someone, particularly if they are high up in their industry. And then of course, secondly, and more often what students are interested in is connecting with recruiters. So with a recruiter, you can talk about, okay, how you found them, why you're interested in them. So of course, again, letting them know, your school year, where you're studying, maybe some skills that you have as well. And then asking them a question about the roles they recruit for. If this is someone you don't even know, it's a good idea to ask them that. They might not recruit for, your particular roles. And so that's a good question to ask. If you do know, this recruiter is the one that you met with, perhaps though, at one of our events, or this is someone that does screen applications, you can specifically state, what did you apply for? What was the position? And I would reference that in the message to let them know I applied for this position. Please let me know if you're the correct person to follow up with. That's a nice way of putting it. And then lastly, and this is an area that I highly recommend that you take advantage of LinkedIn, is networking with alumni. Okay, alumni might be able to help you with hearing about an opening, maybe providing a referral for you to a job, being that you're from the same school. That is always a great idea to get connected with alumni that are in your major or companies that you're targeting. So the bottom examples are a really good one to show off, again, that you're connecting with them because they're a fellow alumni, that you're interested. In this case, they're talking about an internship and wanting to know if they have any advice or any contacts for internships where they work. So that is a great way to reach out to an alumni. Keep in mind, just like regular networking, you will not always hear back from every person that you cold message. And cold message just means someone that you've never talked to before. So if that's the case, Don't be surprised. You can always follow up, and it's okay to do a follow-up message if you don't hear back. Typically, one follow-up message is what I would limit it as. You don't want to become someone where they recognize your name for contacting them too many times, particularly if you applied for a job. They might remember you in a bad way. So, once or twice is enough. And so when you're following up with them and doing this cold messaging, make sure that you can, keep track of who you're talking to. LinkedIn has a really great way to keep track of your messages, though, so that you can make sure you're not doing it too often. But I would be specific in how you reach out if you are doing a particular job. And I have a few examples here for specific messaging. So keep in mind, a lot of people do cold messaging. Some of these recruiters, they receive, hundreds of messages a day. So sometimes being specific, and whether it is because of a specific job application and referencing that, can be helpful. But here's some other ways that you can be specific and might help you stand out from those, flood of messages that they're receiving. And one of them that's highly always recommended is if you ever connect with someone at an event, whether it's here through school, through a family member, through something off campus or on campus, or whatever it is that you met or been acquainted with them, search for them on LinkedIn, connect with them, and put that messaging in of, it was so great to meet you at, and reference where it was or what, mutual connection you had. And then you can go into, if there's a purpose of, wanting information or just wanting to connect or thinking, of you need information down the road. I'll be graduating in a few years and I'd love to connect with you down the road, about more information, things like that. You can always start the conversation so they recognize and remember who you are. And it's always good to make that groundwork of networking where you don't just go exactly when you need something. You follow up and you thank people for when maybe they did something for the school or for your class or for whatever it was. And then the next time that, an intern opening comes up down the road, you are already someone that had really great etiquette and are in their mind because they remember that you messaged them. So that's a great way to, build the groundwork for your network. And then, like we already talked about, limiting, if you are checking on the status of an application, once or twice is enough. You don't want to bombard someone. And other ways that you can message. So offering to volunteer or assist is a great way to message if you're a student and you're not sure if there's any openings. We know with COVID-19, this is a hard time right now. So being able to say, I'm interested in any positions, and if there are no openings at this time, I would even be interested in volunteering or working on projects or assisting in whatever student capacities are available. That's a really nice way of messaging someone so that, hey, maybe there is a small project or something that you could get to know people in that company, and what a great stepping stone to getting a position down the road. Congratulating others, it is a great way, again, instead of always asking or, seeing if they can do something for you, offering something for them is a great way, but as well as congratulating or providing some praise. So if they wrote a great article on LinkedIn, say that, provide them, or thank them for whatever help, but also if they have an accomplishment that they've done, LinkedIn is great about showing you in your feed if someone has been promoted or they've completed a great project or they've done something in their industry. Following up and congratulating people is a great way to reach out with, again, getting some name recognition for you in their messages without having to actually talk about jobs. So that's another great way. So as far as student tips, so things that I would recommend if you are a job seeker and a student, there is a section at the top of your profile, and I will show you when we segue to the actual LinkedIn site where these things are. But there's a box that says open to work, and that lets recruiters know that you're searching. So if they are looking for students that have your major or your background, you will come up in their search. Also, we talked a little bit about having a headline. So for most people, their headline is going to be their position. So for me, it would be Associate Director, of Career Services would be my headline. For students, sometimes they're kind of caught up of what do I put? Do I just put a student? What should I say? Use this to your advantage and show what you're trying to accomplish with LinkedIn. So if you are seeking you know, a specific internship, put that. If you're trying to seek a full-time job, you can put that. You know, this is a really short, sweet example of how to highlight, you know, an accomplishment in very few words. They're saying they're an honor student seeking marketing position. If you want to be specific, you could even say, you know, kind of flip it around. If you are an engineering student, for instance, maybe say, you know, electrical engineering, soon to be graduate seeking full-time opportunities. That's a headline. So those are ways that you can put that in a very short amount of words to show off right off the bat. People know exactly who you are and what you're looking for. You also should customize your URL for your resume. So by that, I mean, LinkedIn gives you a set URL, usually comes with a lot of numbers and letters on the end, which isn't so pretty. So I recommend that you customize that to either your name, your major, something, you know, related to your industry. And then you can plot your URL right in your resume so that, you know, these recruiters can follow up with you through LinkedIn or check out more information about you on LinkedIn. So that's pretty much becoming standard now, is to have a LinkedIn URL on your resume. So we might want to make it look good and easy to find when it's listed on a resume. Adding media to your projects, highly recommend if you can show off, again, anything you've done so far as a student, whether you have a photo of your project, you have an actual document from your project. You know, there's ways that you could upload those directly to your experiences or project sections. And then, of course, this is probably the area that I get the most questions on, is the About section, which shows up at the top of your profile. What do I put there? You know, if I'm a student, do I just talk about being a student again? What do I put in the About section? That's usually a common question. Well, this is an area where keywords are used. So if a recruiter is looking for certain candidates, the About section actually is an area that LinkedIn uses for scanning. So this is an area you really want to utilize to the best of your ability. I'm going to show you a few examples before we segue over to LinkedIn to show you where it is, because this is something that can be one of the highlights of your profile, is your About section. It's basically a summary. So for a student, you are going to use keywords, which again, I'm highlighting in yellow some really great ways that students have used keywords. And then you're going to try as best you can to show, what is your mission? What are you about? Maybe some passions. What is a synopsis of your most, you know, your greatest accomplishment so far as a student? Or what skills or things do you bring to the table? So, you know, the first one's an engineering student. Right away, they start off with, I solve problems in creative ways. So they're already showing, I have something that I can bring to the table, and that's something that I like to do. They talk about where they go to school, and they reference their senior and what their major is. They then give a bullet point list of some of their best highlights. And a bullet point list can be used in About section. So sometimes this is a great way to summarize very quickly for people what your background is. And in this case, they talk even a little bit about the defense and oil industries and things they've done with their internships. So if a recruiter in those industries is looking to hire a new grad, they're going to be found through that About section. As far as this next one, this is a grad school applicant. They are trying to get into a very specific school. So they have made this whole About section very tailored into getting into the NYU School of Business. So they're talking about exactly who they are. They reference some keywords about financial analysis, business solutions, what they've done. They talk about collaborative groups they've been in, but then they talk about, and they give a very personal synopsis of why New York is so important to them, why they really want to be at that school. And it gives even a 5-year plan of who they want to be in, you know, professionally, which is a great way as a student. You can, instead of talking about your background, you can project forward and talk about your future. Is a great way to use that About section. I'm going to give just 2 more examples because a lot of times we get questions about, you know, if I'm a recent graduate, what, you know, how can I show that off? Yes, you should reference if you're a recent graduate or when you're graduating. It's a great thing to put in your About section. They talk, this one though, I like, they're talking again about how can they help businesses and problem solve, again, bringing themselves to the table. So they're very specific. They talk about wanting to work for small businesses and that they are ready to work, you know, in a hard, again, right now, COVID-19, a very hard environment. They're very much tailoring this to the time period we're in, helping struggling companies come back. So again, you can tailor this, update this to, you know, whatever time period or environment or what your industry is going through. The last one though, if you're saying, I have no experience, I don't have things as far as highlights, what do I do? Okay, they're focusing right here on their academic background and what things they have learned. That is a great way, if you don't want to just project to the future, students, you can show off what have you learned, which is a really good thing for an about section. So they're already telling us they want to be a future graphic designer. They talk about some of the classes they've done, and then they talk about the most valuable lessons they learned while being at school. And then they also target some marketing strategies and other types of keywords that someone might be looking for. So great examples of what you could write in an about section. But now let's take it over. We're going to go look at LinkedIn. Very, let me quickly switch this over so I can show you guys where you can reference all the things we just talked about and dive deeper a little bit into what does this look like. All right, so we should now be, move this over. All right, Sharon. So when you are in LinkedIn, this is what it should look like on your profile. So when you first get signed up, you should have something that looks like this. And I already have, of course, some things loaded. So yours might be looking a little bit more blank. And I'm going to show you where you can find sections and where to enter some of this information. But you can see right here, I have the headshot right here. This is something I was taken at an event. It's clean. It has, just my face. And so that, again, is what we're looking for with the headshot. You'll notice right here that headline we talked about, okay? Right here, this is my headline because that's where I'm working. Again, we reference as a student. For you, it might look something along the lines, future electrical engineer or student, senior year student seeking electrical engineering opportunities. That could be a headline. And then, of course, you could see we have these boxes that we talked about. So they ask if you're hiring, if you already have it. I'm already at a job, so employers could be using that. Now, as a student, you would be using this side that's saying that you're open to work. Of course, I don't want to put it past any of you. Maybe some of you have a small business or you're running something, then yeah, maybe you would be posting jobs or using this as a company page if you have that. But for most students, if you're job seeking, this is what you would use. And then of course, it is taking my information of where I am from my job, but you can edit this through these pencil icons. It is located in every section, so you can edit everything. And this is basically your intro section that you can edit. You'll then notice right here, this is the about section. So I give a synopsis of who I am with my background. Again, students might be a little more forward facing with their about sections. And then as I go down, you're going to see some other sections I could use. You can see I don't have a featured section. If I was a job seeker, I would tell myself, yes, you should have a featured section. If you're featuring something, you're basically showing people either your best work or your best highlights. And so I could X this out right here or say, okay, yes, I want to add a profile section and I'm going to add something to feature. And it could be a post, an article, a link. So again, out to a site or media. So again, my project, media documents, a picture, things like that that you want to show off. Those are great things that you can post right here, right at the top, your best work. Your dashboard here, just so you know, kind of gives you an update of where you are with your profile, but it's really nice. They show you how many people have looked at your profile. So if you're wondering, is my profile paying off or people noticing, this is a great way. And Premier customers actually get to see a little more data of who exactly is looking at their profile. For most students, you would never need a paid account, but if that's something in the future where you're using it for company purposes or things like that, you might be more interested in paid. But today we're going to go over what most people are using with the typical basic LinkedIn. Activity, we'll go into that in just a little bit of how the social feeds work, but I want to highlight and show you that your experience section, very similar to like a resume where you're showing off your titles, your roles, your positions. Now for students, again, if you're saying, I don't have paid experience, I don't have much to show off there, then we would say, okay, let's go to our sections here for background, and we're going to focus on education sections. Do you have any licenses or certifications? And right here, volunteer experience. So this is a great place that you can put, even if it was a one-time event, if you did a blood drive, volunteered for on campus, or if you, did maybe a charity or a food event, something like that. Even if one-time events, I recommend you put down if you don't have a lot in your background to list, that would be something to put. As far as your accomplishment section, this is where as a student, okay, how about we fill out some courses? Let's put some courses down so they can see where you're at so far in your school. And then of course, projects. And what most employers want to see more than courses is projects. It shows what you applied from your learning. So this is a section I would recommend. And like I said, some of these top ones may not apply to you, but if they do, take advantage, show that off if you do have any patents or publications. And honors awards, also great to add. So that could be, you know, honors from your clubs, could be your dean's list, could be a competition, you know, placing, things like that you would show off. Test scores, like we went over, is optional. Languages. So if you're bilingual, multilingual, it's a great place to show off. That's a great skill. And then organizations. So clubs you're involved with, associations you're involved with, that's where you would add it. And your skill section. I will jump down right now so we can go through just so you can see what does a skill section look like. So I have, you can see right here, my education, licenses, certifications. And whenever you do want to add, maybe you get another license or another school or another project, another experience, adding that plus button, it makes it very simple. You're formatting everything exactly to their specifications and they're putting it in for you. So it makes it very easy in terms of formatting. LinkedIn does the work for you. I have some volunteering experience here that shows, but here's the skills section. You can see right here that, you know, if you want to add any skills that are relevant to your industry, this is the place to put them. And then others can endorse you. So you can see there's some endorsements here from people who have said, yes, this is something that they have a skill in. So that's something that can be helpful if you want to have maybe your peers, your professors can endorse you. Recommendations are very similar like that. And you can see, I don't have any recommendations yet, so I could ask for one. So that's something if you had a team project where things went really well, maybe having one of your teammates giving you a recommendation on what you've done, or an advisor, or professor, or your supervisor from your internship. You know, whatever it is, if it went really well, you can ask them for a recommendation here. And then you could always give out recommendations. So here you can see I've given out some recommendations to people I've worked with. As far as your accomplishments, they kind of list this whole section. And if you're wondering what is accomplishments, it's all of these things that we just went over could be listed here. So I have only put honors, awards, and organizations. For you, it will differ based on what information you have and what you'd like to put. And then you can see here we have interests. So interests are things or pages you want to follow. And pages could be things, you know, related to public figures, industries, knowledge groups, things like that. So this is a great place where we're going to segue into, okay, what does it look like to follow people and get social and more networking aspect of LinkedIn? So we're going to segue over, actually, and before I segue over, I do want to show you here, actually, they're showing me on my profile people who also viewed. And that doesn't mean that they viewed me. It means that they, you know, people who viewed my profile often look at these people over here as well, because we have maybe a similar employer in this case is the reason why. For your students, it would likely be a same education or university you go to. And you can see right here when I talk about rankings, see where it says first, second. First means I am connected with them, and I'm going to show you how to connect with people in just a moment. And so we already know each other. Seconds mean I'm not connected with them, but I am connected with someone who is. And if you know this person, so in this case, this is one of my seconds, I know this individual who works here. You can add them just by clicking that kind of person button, and it's going to say send if you just want to say I want to connect with you, or do you want to add a note? And like we talked about, if this is someone you don't know, you should be adding a note. Now, in this case, I know this person, so I can click send, and that's great because they're going to recognize me and know me. If they don't, introduce yourself. Tell them who you are and why you're connecting. That's a great place where we can now move over into network. So in terms of who I'm connected with, you can see right here, someone already has been super active and was great about connecting already, and she put a note. So thank you, Anna. You know, this is a great way. So I immediately recognize and know who she is. I see her message, and I'm going to obviously click accept. That's how easy it is to connect with someone when they have given you a request. And so you can see once they give in a request, I even get a message that pops up here. It'll go straight here to my messaging. I'll also get notified about it that someone's connected with me. So you can see they're constantly making you aware of people who are out there. And this page for students who are new and are saying, I don't have a lot of people I'm connected with, this page tells you, okay, here's people you may know that are connected with Anna because I just accepted her. And then when I scroll down, it goes even more with people you might know from Florida Institute of Technology, because that's where, of course, I work. And as you as students, that's going to do the same thing. You can say, these people, you might know them. And it's as easy as clicking connect. And again, deciding if you want to add that note or not. And again, if you don't know them, always add that note. And so this is a very simple way to go through adding people. And then they have, if you notice, pages. Okay, so there's a difference between people and pages. Pages are typically, like we talked about, those companies or those public figures that you can follow. So if I wanted to follow, for instance, NASA, and there's quite a few different departments in NASA that you could follow, the main ones right here, I can say, all right, I am now following NASA, and I would like to go see, okay, in my home section, does NASA pop up or anything related to NASA? As they post, it will, because I just followed them. I just connected with Anna, so anything that she would post would now come up. This is my social feed. If you're familiar with social media, this probably should look a little bit familiar, where if there's anything that's shared by the people you're connected or following, it will show here. If I want to make a post and share with my network, something going on at Florida Tech, if there's an event coming up with career services, if there's maybe something going on in my career life that I'm going to share, maybe I'm going to give advice, or in a lot of times people now post articles. You'll notice right here you could write an article. That's a great way to make some content and maybe network and reach out and have other people come to you, is if you write something maybe about your student experience or a project you're doing or something you're working on. That's the way you could do it. Of course, posting as someone who is working in career services, I could post a job, a video, a photo, and so there's many ways to go about doing that. I can then, of course, go interact, and you can see right away our Florida Tech career page is already sharing that we have a message to employers. They're sharing, the career fairs that are coming up next semester and what they can sign up for. So I can like this post. I could also add a comment if I wanted to go through and talk with some of these employers. So for my job, this is very valuable to reach out and talk with our employer network. And as a student, this is a great way for you to connect with recruiters or companies in your field as a student to ask maybe questions about whatever they've posted. Again, we talked about congratulating people if that's something that would be appropriate. And reaching out to see what's going on in your local community or in your industry communities. So this is the social feed, and LinkedIn is constantly updating and adding more features. So for instance, one of the more recent ones on the side is they have hashtags now you can follow. So if I've already had some that LinkedIn suggested for me that if I wanted to follow higher ed or careers, because that is my office, I'm already following these hashtags. So if someone posts content like that, it's coming up in my feed. For students, I highly recommend, for instance, if you are, a business student, perhaps maybe you're marketing jobs. You could follow that hashtag marketing jobs and they would come in your feed. So if that's something you're searching for. But more than just waiting for things to come to your feed, I highly recommend that you go and use the search ability. So in the network area here, that's where the search ability comes from. And thank you, we have more students connecting. You're going to use here on the side, you can search for connections these are people I'm connected with, my teammates. I could make some groups, different things. I'm going to make it simple because I know there's a lot going on here. For a student, you're generally going to want to search for people, companies, or groups. Okay, 3 things. So if I'm a biology student and I want to search for biology, and even here they have jobs, so beyond just the company, but I would kind of connect companies with jobs. You could search in those 3 areas. So for instance, if you want to get connected with a biology group and learn from your industry or see who's out there and maybe get some referrals, right when I do that, you can see over 2,000 groups coming up on LinkedIn, ranging from very niche and very focused groups to a job group. Molecular biology groups they're posting jobs just for these students, or job seekers in general. So you could follow this group, connect with them. They're from all around the world, so you're going to want to, of course, if they're general, they're open to everyone, you can follow. But if it's local or specific to an area, you might want to follow Florida-based groups, for instance, if you're looking in Florida. So that's a way in groups. I can now switch to people. Do I want to search for people in the biology field that maybe I have connections with? And here's where we talk about that ranking, first, second, third. So someone that maybe I have mutual connections with, I could search there. Am I looking for a particular company? They have some already, you know, the big ones coming up, but I could search. I could also search by location. So again, maybe I want to find the recruiter for a specific company that is here in town. I can do that. That's how easy it is now to find people. So if you want to follow up and say, you know what, I applied to a local job here, maybe it was at Quest Diagnostics, if you applied with them here, you could look up that company and put in, okay, is there anyone that works at Quest Diagnostics? It comes up right here, and I'm going to apply that, and you could see, okay, 1,800 people are coming up that have something to do in their history or their current jobs with Quest Diagnostics. And from there, maybe I'd want to make it specific to, you know, do I want to look in all of Florida? Do I want to make it maybe more specific to Melbourne? And you could pick from there, because it's already starting to come down to 65 in just Florida, and you might want to look up just our local area. From there, it's a very easy way to hit that connect button and send that personalized message of, hi, I'm a Florida Tech student studying biology. I am currently looking for internships and have applied with Quest Diagnostics. If there's any advice or information for applying with your company, please let me know. Or if there's a better contact, I'd be happy to follow up with them. Perfect. 2 to 3 sentences to connect with someone who's hopefully hiring the types of jobs or was the exact position you just applied for. So that's a great way to find people. As far as all filters, I do recommend, because there's some really robust filters in here. We talked about connecting with alumni. Okay, here's where you might want to find, are there any Florida Institute, and we'll see if there are any grads, and I'm going to apply this again, in Florida that worked at Quest. And right now there's nothing public, although I do still have this biology filter on. So if I took that one off, there's a chance we could have had some Florida Tech grads at Quest Diagnostics. So I might want to take out that biology. But I could, again, if it's larger companies, or especially when they're even more targeted local, if I took that out, there's a good possibility I could find them. So of course we know we have big names in here, such as, you know, L3 Harris, Lockheed Martin, all the big companies in Melbourne. You will find hundreds of alumni if you would put in, for instance, those keywords or titles to look. So that's a really simple way to go about finding people. And if you need more help, I do recommend making an individual appointment. We can talk about how can we go connect with alumni and people and jobs. And like I said, I'm in the people section, but you can look by any one of these filters. So it's a lot of filters to go by. And you might be saying, you know what, I just want a job search. I don't want to have to first look, you know, and do all this yet. Let me just look at jobs. Well, they do let you search here, like we just looked through by keyword and selecting job, but they made it much simpler now in adding a jobs category. So all you would need to do is go straight to jobs here. It's already recommending things based on your major or your background. And then from there, you can put in, if you want to look at a specific job, for instance, maybe we're going to look up electrical engineers. This is all of the United States. There's over 15,000 jobs, okay? So LinkedIn is starting to become quite a search engine for jobs. It may be edging out Indeed. Indeed was still the #1 spot for public search engines, although I have to add a plug here for any Florida Tech students and alumni. You get free access to CareerShift. It is a service we pay for, but you get it free, where it will put Indeed and all of the company career pages that are public online into one spot. So you can search there. So I highly recommend you use CareerShift. But LinkedIn is becoming pretty incredible in terms of job searching as well, where now you have the ability to search almost every public company in the US is here on Indeed. And you even now have the ability to search for remote jobs, which is really great for, you know, the time period we're in right now, that if you want to see, are there any remote electrical engineering jobs? There's 141, so you could do them from anywhere in the country. So that's really neat that they have that. The experience level, I recommend using that as well. If you're a new grad, entry level, or using that internship box for those in school, great great, robust filters. I personally think it's actually much nicer and more advanced than Indeed is. So I wouldn't be surprised if it edges out Indeed for the top spot of public search engines. So we went through quite a bit of information. We went through today your profile, how you could optimize what you're putting in your sections, contacting recruiters and people through LinkedIn and what to say. We went through your network companies, jobs, and your social feed. I understand that was a lot, so I'm going to let you have some time now to ask questions, and we can kind of go through if there's something specific you would like to see on LinkedIn or any specific questions. Feel free, you can use your mic or use that chat box if you'd like to use the chat box. And I'm actually going to go check that right now because it looks like we had a few things come in. So I'm going to start from the top. It looks like it says right here, can international students use LinkedIn to find a job on campus? And the answer to that is not as of now. Right now, no. All of the campus jobs are posted on pause. They are kept private just because we only want our students applying to them, and LinkedIn is public. So for right now, they are located in the pause section of student services, and that's where you find campus jobs. In the future, because we do have some changes coming, we are getting a new platform for our campus called Workday, and all jobs will be posted through Workday, which likely will be linked through your pause account as well, but they're kept private in there, so go to your pause account. Then we have a question of how far back should you go for the volunteer and education information? Should we include items from high school? And that's a great question, very related to the resume as well. If you are a freshman or sophomore, high school is still pretty recent. So in that case, if you have something really notable, I would put it, because there's really not much other background you can reach to if you're only a freshman or a sophomore. Now, if you are a junior or a senior, by these years, we're expecting to see the high school is fading away, and all of your college level projects and clubs and things you're doing, that is taking precedent. And so high school usually would not be added at that point. The only exception is if you have something that is really amazing or outstanding from high school, you might keep it on there. So for certain students, if they were Fulbright recipients, that's like 1% of the nation gets those. If you are, maybe you were valedictorian, perhaps you won a national competition in high school that's related to your major, and that's the key word. It does need to be related to your major. There's no reason to put if you are in the sewing club if that's not related to your major. But if you are in, the rocket club and you're an engineer and you successfully won a regional, a state, or a national rocket competition, yeah, that's very related. That's very related if you're in an engineering or STEM major, and I would be putting that down. So that's kind of how you have to decide. If you need help deciding or going through your background, make an appointment. We can go through your individual background. And you can't, someone mentioned about you can't hide that to save the competition off your profile. I'm not sure, you might have to add, Anna, what section you were talking about there, just to see. And then we have a question about, does it really matter how many connections you have? I've seen so many people with 500 plus. I've been told that connections should not be a numbers game and you should be selective when choosing them. What do you think? And it depends a lot of times on personality. There are some people who, are more private than others. And so yes, they're saying, I only want real meaningful connections where I maybe met them face to face and they're the only people I'm going to connect with. I would recommend in LinkedIn, I wouldn't go so far as to say connect with everyone, because I have seen people do that, and it's more so businesses that are like using this as a marketing tool. So they're like connecting with everyone because they're just trying to get free marketing. But as a student, I would recommend you want to connect with anyone that could help you or is related to a job prospect that you can, because you don't know if down the road somebody posts a job only to their feed, and it could be a small business, for instance, and you maybe never met them face to face or had a close connection. But the fact that you were connected with them on LinkedIn and you saw their post, that could mean a difference between knowing about an internship or not. And so that's why I would recommend you should reach out to people that are in your industry that you would want to be connected with in terms of their company or their industry. And particularly alumni, I do think is helpful if they're in your major, because you can see, okay, maybe you find out about a company you never heard about because an alumni got a job with that company. And that's how you hear about things. You know, we used to have word of mouth, and now everything's online. So online is kind of word of mouth at this point. And not having that connection could mean other people know about it and you don't. So good question. I do think it's a personal preference of how many people you want to connect with. There's nothing wrong with having more than 500. There's nothing wrong with having less than 500. But I will say there could be a hurt. The only thing that can hurt you is if a recruiter sees you have like 10 connections, they're probably going to think you're not active on LinkedIn, because that's not quite a lot. So you might want to have, you know, a little bit more than a couple dozen, because otherwise they might think, you know, this student isn't even on here, I'm not going to contact them. So that's something to be about. And there's further into that. For instance, if you have very few connections, like 50, would it be looked down upon? So like I just mentioned, 50 is not like super low, but it is kind of low. So I would, again, a recruiter, it might help you to have maybe at least over 100 to show you're active. It doesn't mean you need to connect with everyone and anyone if you don't want to. But I would be connecting with people that could, like I said, help you down the road as far as your career. And again, if you feel like someone is posting things that you don't want to follow, or this wasn't something that turned out to be, you know, in your interest, you can always unfollow. Although I give caution, you don't want to turn people off and follow and unfollow. I know that's like an Instagram thing. That's not what this platform is. This platform should be showing people some professionalism and respect. So, and that's another good point I'd like to add here is LinkedIn should be professional. Keep it separate from what you would do on Facebook or Twitter. You know, the world is getting blended. We know this is a really controversial political time right now going on. And so I'm not going to say that LinkedIn is the perfect place, because I have seen people who have shared, you know, controversial views or opinions on LinkedIn. And if it's related to their business, they of course would think that's justified. But beware, as a job seeker, you never want to put anything out there that would turn off an employer. And so think of that every time you post, that does this have something to do with my education or my business? If not, let me vent somewhere else. This is, you know, let's not use LinkedIn. But if it is related to your job, that's a place that, yes, you could put it, and just be careful about any kind of inflammatory or controversial topics. Knowing that, yes, there are people out there that are doing that right now on LinkedIn, but that doesn't mean we should follow the example of people who are doing that. And of course, again, we know there are some, for instance, there's a lot of political businesses on LinkedIn, or for instance, certain topics that would make sense for their business. So there's that. Question we have about skills. Do endorsements really matter? Let's say you have many skills but no endorsements. Could potential employers see those as meaningless and lacking proof? And again, very much depends on the company. If you work in a marketing or graphic or very person-to-person people skilled business, yeah, they might look at that and think, okay, are they really, for instance, if you're going for a social media job, and they see you're not very active on LinkedIn, or you're not getting a lot of interaction with people, meaning your endorsements or things like that, they might say, you know what, we don't know how effective they are, or how much they contact, or how much they reach out with people. That's a possibility. However, I'll give you a safe word of caution. The majority of employers and industries, they're not going to cut off your application based on your endorsements or based on your recommendations on LinkedIn. They understand that even though LinkedIn is huge, there's a lot of people not on LinkedIn. I could tell you right now, if I was going to pick my top references and recommendations, the top ones right now that I've worked with in my industry, I would say the top 10 almost, they don't have LinkedIn accounts. So if I was going to provide that to the employer, they still are taking references the old-fashioned way, where when you apply with a job, they, after usually you get to the interview stage, are going to ask for a list of references. They're not going to take it from LinkedIn, although they could. Again, times are changing. They could ask you for a reference page and talk to those people, and they might reach out to people through LinkedIn that maybe you are connected with as well. So it's possible. But I don't want to scare you and make you think, oh, if I have nothing, no one's going to look at me. No, you're a student, particularly students, they're going to know you're just starting out. So there's not an expectation. Now, if you've been in the field for 10, 20 years, maybe they'll start to think, is there anyone, you know, that you're connecting with that should be listing something for you by that point? Maybe, again, maybe not, because there's people, like I said, in my field even that are not on LinkedIn. So that's probably going to evolve as the online presence of companies evolves. We're getting more and more online, so that could change. Any other questions? Can you include software or industry skills that you are not necessarily proficient in? Okay, good question. This is the same for resume. This is the line that you usually need to follow when you're putting anything on a resume or your LinkedIn. Is if I were in an interview and someone asked me about that skill, do I feel confident that I could talk about what my knowledge level is or what I've done with it? And if you say no, I would not want to do that. I would not want to be put on the spot and have to talk about it, then it's probably not a skill. If you can say, if they're saying, you know, what have you, if someone asks you, what have you done with this skill? And your immediate response is, I wouldn't look good if I answer that question, then it's not a skill. Now, if you feel confident that I could say, yes, for instance, if they ask you, you know, I see you listed AutoCAD as a skill on your resume. Okay, can you tell me what you've done with that? And you feel confident that I could say, I have applied it in my classroom or in list whatever class it is. You know, I've done it in my class where we've had some applications where we've tested and done certain drawings or whatever it is you've done. You know, and so far I have successfully built and list whatever it is or drawing or whatever you've done. If you feel like, yes, I could say it, yes, as a student, that's, you know, that's a good answer to show that, yes, you have basic proficiency, if that's the question. Because I see if you have that as a skill level is very, you know, again, there's people will rank beginner, you know, through advanced very differently per person. So I recommend the confidence level test. Can I talk about an interview and feel good about it? And if you say no, if they ask me, for instance, because I know you added, if you're just in the process of learning it, if they say, oh, I see you put down AutoCAD as a skill, and you say, well, right now I'm in the process of learning it, and you know, by the end of the semester I should be doing A, B, C, or blah, blah. You know, if you don't even have something to show that you even drawn or used it yet, that I wouldn't feel good about, because I think an employer is going to see through it and think, well, if they put that as a skill, what else are they stretching? What else are they exaggerating? But if you are able to say, yes, I built this, or I have done this assignment with it and it's completed, yes, that shows that you have proficiency with it. So, good question. All right, I see that we're getting close with time, so I am going to wrap up here, and I'm going to let Alexis take over. If you have any other questions, feel free to email us. Our email is career@fit.edu. Also, you can hop on Handshake and make an individual appointment, which I recommend. Sorry, I just see one last question before we switch over to Alexis. We have a question about LinkedIn assessments, a good way to demonstrate that skill. Yes, if you can back up a skill with an assessment, any type, whether it's LinkedIn, a certificate, a training, something that shows that you have demonstrated it, always a good thing to show off. You can show that off on a resume. You can show that off in your portfolio on your LinkedIn. And so that's something that I would always show proof, if you have proof or any demonstration of your skill. Yes. As far as making an appointment, you just have to make it at least one day in advance. So for instance, if you went on right now, if you want to look in Handshake, you could see appointments for tomorrow, and it's based on availability. So, you know, if they're all gone for tomorrow, you can always look for the next day, but we are open Monday through Friday for anyone who'd like to make appointments.